Welcome to the Labyrinth. My guest today is Khrisha Shah. She's the CEO and co-founder of Dysco, an independent social networking website. She graduated from UC Berkeley and London School of Economics, and she had previously worked for Guide Public Affairs Limited and Accenture. Khrisha, welcome to the Labyrinth.
Hi, thank you for having me, Pratham. I'm really excited to be here.
So yeah, we were talking about life. How's life for you?
Life is messy. Things are challenging. I think the last 1.5 to 2 years has been probably the most challenging of my life. And particularly the last 6 months have been really, really tough. So things are complicated, but I have full belief in my heart that there's a light at the end of a tunnel. And yeah, I'm waiting and just trying to keep strong.
Yeah, same here. I think we're all going through a very confused phase in our lives right now. We're at the crossroads. We what was very difficult for you in the past 2 years?
I've always been sort of, a perfectionist, and I've always tried to do the right thing. So I was a high achiever in school. I always tried to keep everyone happy, my family, my friends, and just trying always to maintain a good reputation and good relationships. I think that's what we're raised to do, as Indian girls as well. Uh, be be the best you can be. And in the last 2 years, I felt like everything I knew about how to be and how to do the right thing suddenly came into question. And I think I found that very difficult on a personal level, um, and in terms of public as well. With Disco, I do have a public, representation. We used to do events and communicate with our community. And suddenly, as things became so polarized and so controversial, I felt like I couldn't speak anymore without offending people. I couldn't be honest with people without upsetting them. And I couldn't find myself wanting to lie either because I felt like I was betraying my own truth. So, kind of being able to balance those three things and still carry on with life, I think that in itself has just been really, really challenging.
Have you lost any friends because of your opinions?
I wouldn't say lost. I think, like, from people, I think we were connected to a lot of people more than we normally would have been before social media and technology came into our lives. Um, so I think I naturally, over the last 5, 6 years, actually started phasing out different social networks from my life, beginning with Facebook. Um, and so I saw myself distancing from people who I was connected to earlier, maybe old college acquaintances and people from boarding school or other places. But when COVID happened and kind of with everything, that sort of escalated. And it was definitely tied in with my leaving a lot of social networks. Uh, Close friends, I wouldn't say I've lost. I'd say maybe there was some distance, but I do feel it coming back now as everyone I feel is trying to make more of an effort. People have been isolated for so long. I do feel like everyone wants to try and find a middle ground now. So I'd say I'm fortunate to have not lost close friends, but I do feel a bit distanced from many people, A, because of what I'm going through internally, but also just the circumstances of what is considered normal life now.
Hmm. Yeah, I think I can relate to that. What was the idea behind Disco?
I think we briefly chatted about this when we spoke on the phone, but uh, initially the idea was inspired by a trip I made to Iceland, and I won't go into the long version, but the short version is just that I had a friend's friend take me around the country, and he happened to have a travel company, so he showed us around the country and kind of gave us a very personal experience when we visited. And that experience, meeting someone who I just seemed to connect with and have them show me around the country, it really inspired me. And I felt like it would be amazing if everywhere I traveled, I had people like that. So the initial idea was to create an app that allows people to meet interesting people wherever they are and share experiences with them. Um, as we, when I say we, it was my brother and I who initially decided to do this venture together. And when we decided to start trying to build an app, we realized that we didn't have the skill set needed to get it off the ground. So we started trying to find app developers and designers and basically build the team that would build this app. And that's when we sort of realized how difficult it is to build a team. Because to me, it wasn't just about hiring anyone whose CV meets certain criteria. I think for me, it was finding people still who I connect with, who I resonate with. That was sort of the most important thing. And when we were trying to use, we tried to see how do we find people. We posted on Facebook groups and, we reached out to people through other people. And during that process, Michelle and I realized it's really difficult to find people because it wasn't just us that was looking for people to work with. Kind of everyone around us, all of our friends and family, everyone was looking for someone, be it an individual or an agency or maybe a brand or a creative person. And so the idea kind of pivoted then from wanting to build this app to wanting to build an app that helps people find people in general, not just for travel or not just for an experience, but to work and to collaborate. So that was the initial idea for Dysco. And it was really inspired by the fact that I wasn't happy with the existing solutions out there. I stopped kind of believing in Facebook and Instagram's motto and their positioning, and I just felt like there was a huge gap that was being disregarded, and it was kind of making people build more shallow interactions than meaningful ones. So yeah, I think that was sort of the idea, and that propelled us to want to build a discovery platform. So Disco is short for discover. And yeah, that was the early sort of inspiration behind it, and then it evolved and took many different forms, but it still stays true to that core value of wanting to build like-minded community and meaningful connections.
Interesting. I think a lot of us are leaving Facebook and Instagram for good, especially in the past 1 year, mainly because of big tech censorship.
Mhm.
What is your opinion on big tech censorship?
So honestly, it's so ironic because I had a long list of reasons of why I was frustrated with platforms like LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And at the time, censorship wasn't really one of them. 5 years ago, it wasn't something that I thought about a lot. Censorship was sort of an abstract idea that, oh, censorship happens in China. And yeah, the government here censors a bit, but it didn't personally affect me a lot. Um, when this health crisis started, and the pandemonium started, I and as I went down a road of starting to ask questions and realizing things don't add up, as soon as I saw that the social media platforms were censoring things that contradicted with the information that I was getting, that's when I really started to get, concerned and worried about it. And I think if we have these inclinations, you probably have seeds that have been planted throughout your life that have maybe made you think about these things a bit. But I think it's always personal experience when it hits you that you really are then able to go into the depths of it and uh, really develop a strong feeling about it and think if there's something you want to do or say. So I've always been someone who tries to speak out about various things, whether it was environment related or human rights related. I actually interned at Human Rights Watch when I was in college. And I suppose there's always been this gap between what is said in the mainstream and what is said in public forums and then what really happens. And with censorship, I felt the same thing. Like we were talking about it, but no one was really talking about the aspects that really needed to be spoken about. Um, so yeah, I think honestly, at this point, I think censorship will also be their downfall. There's only so long you can go with trying to put band-aids on things and trying to sweep them under the rug. But the truth is contagious, and people will eventually realize that it should be for them to decide what information they consume, and it shouldn't be for anyone else. Uh, it was a funny analogy, but when I began thinking about why does Instagram censor so much and why are they censoring, I kind of thought about it like in Harry Potter. There was that part of the library, I think the restricted section of the library in Harry Potter. And when I used to read those books when I was younger, I always thought, oh, I would love to go into the restricted section. I would love to be there to see what information is out there. And so I was naturally like, if something's censored, I want to know what it is. I've always been curious like that. So yeah, I think it's exciting. I think we should be pushed out of our comfort zones. We should be forced to see why these things impact us. And I think it's important and painful, but it's important to watch people experience it personally and see what is the problem with something, and only that will allow them to fight back against it.
Interesting. Hmm. Another reason why a lot of people are leaving big tech websites is because of social media addiction. Did you ever
Mhm.
have a toxic relationship with social media?
I think, yeah, definitely. I actually wrote an article about that. I'll share a link and maybe you can put it in the show
Yeah.
notes. But honestly, I feel like all of us do, that everyone I know does. I still do. Even though I've left so many platforms, I still find myself, forget social media, I find myself addicted to my phone. And I've really cut down my usage, but I still feel like we are in that trap of we've been in that trap for a long time of feeling like, okay, I can leave, but then I isolate myself in terms of my work and my career. And then more importantly, right now, from information. Um, I only use Disco's Instagram account. I deleted my personal one sometime at the beginning of this year, actually. And even then, pretty much, I unfollowed everyone I know personally, almost everyone, because I use it purely for information and inspiration and kind of knowledge. But even that, I find myself addicted to it. I find myself constantly seeking out that information, and I haven't found a way to say, okay, I don't want to really know what's happening, but I feel like right now we do need to know what's happening. So I can't say I've figured it out, but I think just being conscious of it and making conscious steps, like be it, deleting as many accounts as you can or changing who you follow, trying to set time limits. I've never been an organized person, like being able to stick to a schedule. So any attempts to say, okay, I'll only do it for 1 hour a day, that doesn't work for me. But I'm still consciously, when I feel like I've been looking down and scrolling for too long, I'm constantly trying to put it down. So I have released I have been able to successfully release all the pressure to have personal social media accounts. So I don't have that anymore except on Disco. But aside from that, I'm working towards being able to. My goal is by the end of next year to not have a smartphone, to only have a dumb phone, and to have maybe my laptop or an iPad at home, which I use at home. But I want to be uh, unsmart when I'm out and about. So that's the goal, and I think that's a fairly reasonable one. Let's see how it goes.
That sounds very ironic. Smartphone. I- It's not really a dumb phone. I think you will have a lot of time on your hands without the smartphone. And have you heard of this concept called dopamine fasting? A lot of people go fasting, but instead of not eating, they spend time without their cell phones.
Hmm. I've done that before, and I'm actually intending to do that next week again. So I'm taking a 7 or 8 day holiday, and my plan is to completely go off and kind of be off grid and get that feeling and just get that sort of peace back, even if it is only for a little bit.
Yes, I find it very ironic that the people who are most aware of technology are also the ones who are most paranoid of technology. And my question to you right now is, what is your opinion on the metaverse?
So honestly, I laugh at it, to be honest. I just think, I mean, we knew this was coming. We've been headed in this direction for a long time. And of course, again, once you start to unravel, the matrix, as they call it, or how these systems are intertwined, be it um, politics and big tech and et cetera, media, when you pull at one, kind of they all unravel. Uh, so I feel like we knew that they're trying to push this idea of living in a virtual reality, doing everything online, socializing, working, eating, whatever it might be. But from my personal experience, the reason I laugh at it is because even pre COVID or pre pandemic, my entire motivation for building a physical and offline community through Disco was because I just saw it, and I knew with every fiber of my being that people like meeting in person. So Disco is always meant to first try to connect people locally rather than globally. It was always intended to build connections between people who live nearby. We played around with thinking of it being hyper local and stuff. Um, but it was all because I knew and I saw every single time we hosted events that people love meeting people in person, and they don't get that kind of value from any sort of online interaction, no matter how frequent. So I think I might be being optimistic or idealistic, but I don't think everyone is going to love the idea of doing everything online. You can make anything sound amazing in a marketing campaign and through high quality content and things like Black Mirror, etc. But that's just not reality. It's a false reality in my opinion. So I'm not too worried about it. I think people will gravitate towards it. Might be a trend. Let's see where it goes, but there's no way that could be a long-term solution for everyone. Maybe some people will, and that's their choice.
Yeah, same here. Even I have very mixed feelings about the metaverse. In the beginning, I was very paranoid, but then I started to think of it in another way. I started thinking, I started imagining things. How would it be to conduct a podcast in the metaverse? Maybe there are good opportunities in the metaverse, but I would definitely not want such powerful technology to be centralized in the hands of a few, as we are seeing right now. That's
I
the
also think like when we talk about it, we're talking about this as people who are, in their late 20s, early 30s. We are talking about it as a generation that has existed before all this technology was around, before phones and cell phones, before laptops and stuff. I fear and I feel very concerned about the younger generations. Now that I have two nephews who are 2 and 4, I'm constantly thinking about the fact that this is normal to them. They've grown up with parents who use smartphones all the time. They've grown up around people who use social media. They've grown up watching stuff on YouTube. This is their normal. And I don't have kids, but I do have nephews, and that just brought out a new kind of concern for me, from the heart. I just felt like that's not the future I would want for them, for anyone I love. And it's not even fair because we're being presented these new ways of living without there ever being any precedent, so we are constantly, and that's just in all of history, it's always, we are in a live experiment. And I don't think that we can run from that, but I do think it's really important to remain grounded and conscious and realize that we have to be involved. We have to be involved in the direction that life is going. um, I've always been interested in social and public policy. That's what I did my master's in. And so I've always wondered, how do you make society better? How do you make places better? How do you help people grow out of poverty and stuff? And I've always wondered, how do you do that with policy? So my mind has always worked in a let's find solutions or let's improve things kind of way, and weighing up pros and cons of different options. And with this, to me, it's a no brainer. The apparent positives or advantages from it, just they're marketing campaigns. I'm sorry, but just to me, it's like it's not real. It's just not real.
True, true. And I feel really bad for the children today. They have never gone to a real school, a physical school. Most of them spend time behind a screen thinking that this is the only source of education. And I feel very weird when I see parents masking their kids. And I don't know if they've ever seen a stranger's actual face.
No. And I think, Pratham, the thing is that I guess as humanity, but also as a population, we've been conditioned also to just accept that life is difficult or things happen the way they do, and there's not much you can do about it because this is the way it's always been. So I think people have been, to a certain degree, deliberately desensitized to the fact that they have agency or that they can change things. Whenever I'm the one who my family thinks that I'm the angry one in the house, always complaining and ranting and raving. And whenever I talk about this, like, it's not right. What are we doing to the kids? And we have to think about the long-term consequences. There's sort of an attitude generally, and from friends as well, that, well, that's just the way it is. It sucks, but now what can we do about it? And I think that this is a turning point where we're being forced into more of a corner to see where is that line. Where is the line? If we can't awaken something in us to do something, then we're going to suffer the consequences. And I think we have to be prepared for that, but also just know that knowledge is power. If you know, then you can make informed choices, and no one can infringe upon your free will at the end of the day.
I agree. And it's a very difficult time to have normal conversations. Like you said, a lot of people say it is what it is. You have to accept it. I keep hearing these kind of sentences. If everyone can do it, why not you? How do you react to that?
I've become a lot less reactive in the last, I'd say, 9 months compared to the previous 9 months. So I'm proud of myself for coming a long way. I think I stopped trying to convince anyone of anything, really. It's hardest at home with the people I love. But I think I've seen much better results if I hold back, maybe drop in a comment here and there in a non-angry way, and allow people to reach their own conclusions in their own time. I've at this point, I believe that we can't change someone else's mind. We can only change ourselves. So I think that's the right way to go about it. I don't really react when someone says that. I just let it go.
I try to do the same thing, but sometimes I get really angry.
Yeah, I'm not saying I don't. I do have those moments, but yeah, I've become a lot better at not getting riled up. And I think we all come from a place of wanting the same thing, whether people are, whatever their opinions are on how is the right way to deal with this situation, be it whether they think there should be more censorship or there should be less, or whether they think there should be more lockdowns or less, or more medical interventions or less. Either way, both groups want normalcy. They want to save lives, at least the masses do, even if they, whichever way they believe. Our intention is the same. It's just that the solutions we're picking are different, and we're trying to convince each other that the one I've chosen is the right one. I just don't think it can be that simple, and it's not binary. And kind of reducing this to binary is what makes it so polarizing. And I think we have to stay away from that, and just realize that everyone's truth is different. So maybe I have had experiences where censorship has benefited me. Just maybe I have. And maybe I've had instances where censorship has harmed me or caused problems in my life. But that is each person's truth, right? What based on their experiences. If I come and tell you, no, it's completely wrong, but if you've had a different experience, it just is your truth. I can't do anything about that. So I think I've been trying to apply this to everything, that there is no one answer. Even if it's with stuff that I may feel really strongly about, that may not work for someone else in their reality. So I think that for me, the ultimate goal is to reach a point where it's genuinely live and let live. Let people make their own choices. Let them choose, because they have to live with that choice. I tried earlier, which I realized was wrong, to impose my beliefs or my ideas or my worldview onto other people. And it doesn't work, because at the end of the day, that's me infringing on their free will as well. It doesn't work. It's just going to cause more animosity. And if that's happening with people you love, and you don't want to cut off from them, and you don't want to distance yourself from them, then that's probably, in my experience, not the right way to go. I think you have to step back and just let people have their own journey and go through their own experiences.
Yes. Now, I know that you previously worked for Accenture. Did you enjoy your corporate life?
No, no. So honestly, I did my undergrad in political economy, and I did my grad in, as I said, social policy and development. my My goal was always to work in an international development organization like the World Bank, the UN, um, any of those. So when I graduated, both from my undergrad and my grad school, I applied to a lot of organizations like that. I didn't get very far. Uh, I kept getting rejections, or I was told I didn't have all the right prerequisites because I hadn't done a degree in law or statistics, which were both two quite important things that you need to work at some of these places. And I toyed with the idea of wanting to work in the public sector with the government as well in some form, but I I couldn't see myself doing that either. So I landed up at Accenture because I wanted to stay in the UK. I didn't want to come back to India. And I thought, okay, if I work at Accenture, they do projects in development, they do projects with the government. Maybe that'll be a segue for me to do that kind of work later. But I didn't get very far, and at Accenture I realized I was miserable. I wasn't very good at my job. I wasn't feeling fulfilled. I honestly, it just didn't make sense to me. I didn't understand what I was doing, and as such I thought, okay, I'm meant to be a smart person. I've got good grades, I've had a lot of work experience. Why is this not making sense to me? But it just never did. It never fit. I was on three different projects. I worked on a project um, which was called Digital Public Service for the Future, and we were pitching the idea or elaborating on the idea of government as a platform, kind of what we're seeing come in now. And post that, I worked with the Met Police as well on a small digital transformation project where they were trying to digitize the police services. That was one of their clients, Accenture's clients. So I worked on a couple of these systems. I worked kind of at a very low level. I was an analyst, entry level, but it never felt right. And in less than a year, I just wanted to leave. I wasn't happy. I didn't like the work culture. I didn't like my manager. um, I just didn't feel like the values that they were presenting outside, their brand values, matched the way things worked. So I couldn't fit in because I went in thinking that's what the company was about, but it wasn't. So I really didn't think so much about it. I just thought it's not working for me. I want to leave. I want to do something on my own. I've always been kind of an independent person, but I knew that if I had to leave and do something on my own, that meant I had to move back to India. So that was a kind of like my big conundrum because I'd been away for 8, 9 years at this point. And at that point, my thought process was, I'm never coming back. I'm going to stay in the UK. I'll get my residency and then I'll see where life takes me. I don't want to come back to India. Uh, but I think at that point, when I was really unhappy at my job and quite unfulfilled, it just became clear to me that I needed to make a change, and it's okay. And if it was in my destiny, I'd somehow end up leaving the country again if that was really what was best for my future self. So I went with it, and once I quit, I never looked back.
Hmm. What are the requisites that you need to find fulfillment in your work?
I think I need to see the value and impact that I'm having in people's lives. And that was something that was missing while working at a big corporate and quite low down. And I felt that even in my previous jobs, where I was kind of in the background just doing administrative work, and I didn't feel like, what is materializing? Like what's happening from the work I'm doing? I always felt like I have more potential. So I feel like at Disco, even though it was small and even though it was challenging when I began, I just felt really fulfilled. I could see what I was doing. I could do it my way. I was watching my creation just get bigger and bigger. Every time someone found a job through us, or found a collaborator through us, or just met someone inspiring through us, hearing them tell me, oh, I met this amazing person at the last Disco event, or I connected with someone through the social network, that that filled every part of me. I just felt so happy. So I think that's the most important thing, seeing the value and seeing what impact it's having. And I think the other thing is working with people and serving people, or connecting with people, or offering something to people who I truly resonate with. I think that's what's become really tough for me again in the last 1.5 years, I struggled with being able to keep up the same pace and passion with disco because I suddenly felt disconnected from my community and from some of the people I was working with as well, because all of these new issues came up into our lives that were a very big deal to me, maybe because of the my professional and educational past and interests. But I didn't know how to talk anymore to people who I was working with or working for. I either felt like I had to just keep quiet and keep just saying things to continue working, or not, and that was really tough. So I think being able to work with people who I trust, who I resonate with, and being able to be really honest, I think those are really important things for me to feel fulfilled.
I felt the same way when I was working for JP Morgan Chase, and prior to that, I was working at Northern Trust. And people would often ask, how do you find work? And my answer would be, it pays the rent. That's it. Like, I don't have anything else to add. I can't say it's good or bad. I was just there for the money. That's it.
Yeah. And
This
I think like I experienced that as well. Kind of actually, it was one of the big turning points for me where the lockdowns had started. We'd kind of slowed down with work, and then this big project came into our lap, and it was a really exciting big project. It sounded like it was something really meaningful to make a difference for the people of Bombay. It was related to environment and biodiversity and stuff. And I was really excited to do it. And more importantly, the organization was, they were quite ready to pay us a decent amount, and they were excited for us to do a lot of things. But as the project started going further, I started finding like issues with the way it was presented. I started feeling like I don't resonate with these people, or I started finding problems with the messaging that was being pushed through the campaign. And I had to take a very difficult decision to pull out of it. Um, it was a large sum of money that would have covered my team salaries for about probably 6 months to a year. It would have covered a lot of our other costs. It would have been a really good project. We would have gotten a lot of visibility, but inside I felt like I was selling my soul because it wasn't answer, like it was contradicting the things that I was otherwise discovering were the truth, or I was kind of finding problems with those things. So that was a really really difficult choice for me, because I felt like if I want to continue working and I want to grow, then I have to sell out, or if I don't want to do it, then I can't work. And there was a period when I thought I just have to give up. I just have to give it all up and I can't do anything. And I let myself kind of feel that. And then I slowly, since the turn of this year, I've been trying to figure out how to reposition everything I'm doing in a way that seamlessly fits into my new way of being. So I'm trying to make it more flexible. I'm trying to make it more dynamic. I'm trying to do it more independently as well, so that I feel like I can be true to myself rather than having a whole team of people and pushing my views on them, and through that trying to, make change, but face resistance. So I'm in a period of transformation, but I think it's important, and I think a lot of us are doing that right now, yourself included.
Yeah. I think a lot of us had a small phase of personal transformation because we had a lot of time. We had a lot of time during these lockdowns. And I'm not the only guy who quit my corporate job this year. We know that during this year, millions of individuals have quit their corporate job. There is this thing going on called the Great Resignation, and all around the world, millions of individuals have quit their job. What do you think might be the reason for the Great Resignation?
I think there's probably lots of reasons. Definitely, all these mandates and pressure from companies must be a trigger point. But I think people have been unhappy at work for a long time. People have been feeling unfulfilled. They feel like their work is meaningless. And the more uh, industrialized and the more digitized we get, and the more disconnected we get, the more isolated we get, I feel like people have more time to think and ponder and mull over the meaning of their life and the meaning of their work, and what is this doing for me. I think if everyone had bills paid and a roof over their head, a lot of people wouldn't choose to do what they're doing, and that tells you something. I think we've been fed this false idea since we were kids that work is suffering, and if you want to be successful, then you basically just have to suck it up and suffer, and it's not meant to be fun. And I think we keep getting told that all the time, not deliberately or consciously by people. I think it's just become embedded now as a very core belief system that life is hard, life should be really difficult, you have to make a lot of sacrifices to make everyone else happy, do whatever you're told, the jobs that pay a lot are the most important ones, and if you're not doing those, then you're not so important in the workforce. And I mean, I can't even begin to wrap my head around all of that, but sort of all of that came crashing down for me, not just now, but it has been building up for some time. You know, disco is always meant to be for people who have non-traditional careers or more kind of different jobs or different job profiles or vocations. And the reason I built that is because that's who I felt I wanted to cater to. Like, I didn't want to build, I knew LinkedIn existed for people in corporates and multinationals. I knew, like, most, white collar jobs use Naukri.com, etc. So I wasn't trying to build another that. I was always trying to build something for the people who don't fit in to traditional work structures. And so I think people are just realizing, they're questioning things, and they're pushing themselves out of their comfort zone when they're faced with two bad choices. Then they really have to think, and they're making those changes. So I also think, I suppose, lockdowns, etc., have played their part in making people realize that they need less and they can do with less. So if you're trying to earn less money, you're trying to travel less, you're trying to spend less, you're trying to shop less, maybe you don't need to work a job that you don't like as much for that much more money, because you just don't want so much anymore and you're finding fulfillment within. So I think there's probably a lot of reasons, but I definitely think coercing people or like telling them, giving them an ultimatum, that you've got to make this health decision or you can't work here, that's obviously leading to people making choices, and it will continue to do so. So I think it's a good thing. I just see all of this pressure as a good thing, honestly.
Are there any social media platforms that you respect?
I mean, I've been dabbling with a lot of alternate platforms. I can't say that I've gotten hooked on any, and that's probably a good thing as well because I don't want to. I like the positioning and the idea behind Minds, MINDS. I think Minds is pretty cool. They're more of a independent, censorship-free social network. And then obviously I've been watching a lot of my content on BitChute or Library and platforms like that. So I think those are great models. I do think that the future is going to be lots and lots and lots of different networks. I don't think it's going to be one or two or three main ones. I think the future will be splintered. It will be lots of little ones, and you'll choose where you want to be and where you want to find people. Maybe I'll use Disco for some things, and then maybe I'll use Minds for others, and maybe I'll use something else. But I think it's going to be niche networks and niche micro communities. And sure, there might be others that are a bit larger and aggregate people for certain things. But this whole one stop shop kind of idea, I don't think that's going to stand the test of time.
Has your experience with disco changed you as a person?
Definitely. Um, in what sense? You'd have to be more specific.
In general sense.
So I think disco gave me a huge creative outlet. It really allowed me to express myself. I feel like I got to put everything I feel and believe, and just, it was kind of energy. I just felt like I had this energy inside me and I wanted to create, I wanted to put it out in the world. And by doing that, it always made me feel like more of me. So when I built the platform, the way we designed it, the way I got to think about how I want to position it, how I want to talk about it, how does disco speak, what are the values that we're pushing, kind of who are the people we're highlighting. When we'd host events, I always knew that I wanted to host events that were different, that put everyone on an equal footing, whether you're someone who's old or young, famous or unknown, wherever. The idea was to bring people on a common platform, to level it out and to inspire people. And by doing that, it just gave me confidence that the world that I see and feel in my heart, it can be there, and that I have the ability to create those little worlds. So every little event that we did, I feel like it was a piece of me inside that was coming to life, and it just made me feel really good. We had a lot of challenges. We've I've gone through so many different sorts of experiences, and I think each one of them has made me grow as a person. Um, I do struggle with people pleasing. I find it tough to say no to people. I find it tough to disappoint people. I try to maintain everyone's expectations, and I feel like disco pushed me to learn how to tackle that, and how to draw boundaries, and how to say no, or how to stand up for myself, how to not get bullied by a bigger brand or someone who's collaborating with us. I learned I had to let go of two people who I wasn't happy with working with anymore, and I really struggled to do that. I just didn't know how to fire someone, and I found a way to do it without it feeling like I was firing them, and I think that was very well appreciated. um, so I learned a lot of things. I feel like I've really grown thanks to disco, and I'm so grateful because I've met so many people through disco. And I also feel like disco allowed me to feel understood. Not everyone understands me, but I feel like through disco, people who did understand me were able to gravitate towards me. So I feel like it brought a lot of positivity into my life as well. So I see disco as sort of an extension of myself. Sometimes I see it as my friend. Sometimes I see disco as just, um, you know, uh, a support system. It's all sorts of things, and yeah,
Okay. So back when you were a people pleaser,
still
still,
struggling with it. Yeah.
okay. Can you give us an example, if you don't mind, of a moment where you wished that you said no, but you happened to say yes?
So I can only think of a little boring one, but I'll tell you anyway because it's the first one that's on my mind. But um, initially, like I wanted disco to be simple. When we changed tech teams, the team that was building the platform, like multiple times. We had about 4 different tech teams that worked on disco. So we started from scratch 3 to 4 times because of various reasons. But from the very first team that we worked with, I remember my innate belief was that I want disco to be really simple. I don't want to use complicated technology because I knew I can't build tech. Like I know I'm not a coder, and so I never wanted to do something that seemed too unrealistic for me. And I kept pushing and saying, I want it to be simple, and I want it to be a certain way, and I don't need to compete with a Facebook, and that's not who I was trying to be. But the team that we were working with, the tech lead that we were working with, I think his vision was different, and he was pushing and pushed and convinced me to go in a very different direction. And we tried to introduce NLP, and we tried to get like very intelligent AI and make it very predictive, and it didn't feel right to me, but I went along with it thinking, okay, like this is the right thing to do. This is what they're saying all the future of tech platforms are. We should be incorporating this kind of technology. And it was just a disaster because we didn't get very far. We burnt a lot of money. I didn't understand it. So if I felt handicapped as well, that if someone else can't do it, then now I have to go back to scratch. But I've wasted all this time and money trying to implement these things. And I couldn't even convince myself that it was a worthwhile investment. And I think, when we scrapped that version, that's when I told myself, just trust your gut. You should have said no. You should have said, I don't want to do it this way. It's my product, it's our product. We know the way we want to do it. We should have said no. But we didn't. I think I wasn't really trying to only people please. I think I'd outsourced that ability to make the right judgment to someone else, thinking someone else knows what I want better than me. And I regretted that. I did it a few more times. I still sometimes do, but I think I'm learning to trust more that, like I said, what may work for you may not work for me. And if I don't feel like it's right, then I shouldn't feel pressured to just agree with someone else. Yeah.
Do you ever have this habit where you're in an argument and you say okay, you give up in that argument, but then you come back home in your own private space and then You have that argument with yourself where you tell yourself, you know what, I should have said this, I should have said that, and you get really pumped up.
Yeah, yeah, that happens all the time, and that's the thing, right? Then you just have regret. Why didn't I say this then? And I think they say that stop, pause, take deep breaths, then react instead of respond, and kind of think about what you're going to say. But I think we only learn with experience, and I think like we have to also learn to not feel the need to give an instant response. I think sometimes it's okay if you're unsure about something to say, okay, I'll think about it and get back to you. And that's okay, because in that moment you might give in, but maybe after reflecting you won't. So by giving yourself some time, you can probably get back at the person or to the person, when you've had some time to think about it. But this is what I'm working towards. I haven't gotten there fully yet.
Yeah, December is almost here, and during this time of the year, I reflect on the entire year, and I scream, "Oh, look, I wasted another year." How would you reflect on this year?
It's been a really challenging year. I think this year, in many ways, has been a lot more challenging than the previous year. Also because I suffered a personal loss in my family, and that's been extremely difficult, of course, in a whole different way. So I think this year is just unique in that it's incomparable to any other year of my life. Um, and I think I'm trying. I have a feeling that yes, 2022 will be more chaotic on the outside, but I believe that I've come out stronger, and I want to keep building my inner strength and resilience and courage to remain centered through next year. So I'm excited for next year. I hope it brings a lot more calm and peace, at least internally, if not externally. Um, but yeah, I guess I'm proud. I'm proud of I've how I've grown in the last year. I feel proud of it. I know there are things that I still want to do, and there always will be, but I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay with. I've made peace with how this year has gone, and I'm hoping next year will be a better one.
Mm. What was the idea behind hashtag Love Not Fear?
So this ended up being like a very spontaneous international collaboration that we initiated. It was with Robin Minotti, who's now a friend, and a couple of other people, where we've been thinking about, what do we want to do? How do we want to help people, and kind of how do we want to talk to people, and how do we want to give them information that will be helpful and inspiring and comforting. And I think while we were talking, I remember saying that, we need something that people can unify behind, something that will stop people from turning against each other, and just something common that we all can resonate with. Because I think we need to find common ground. I don't think that the answer to what's happening is more division and, cutting off and more isolation. And so I think it just, as part of conversation, we were like, yeah, that can help people share love and not fear. And I think that's when it clicked. I think Robin then said, "Love not fear." Yeah, that's great. Like that's a good name for the campaign, and let's go with it. And so we just began from there, because it was such a universal sentiment that we as we were having this very spontaneous conversation, we stuck to it. And the idea behind Love Not Fear was to talk about the psychological impact of what's happening. Again, it doesn't matter whether you believe this is right or that is right, or this is wrong or that, it just doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we have to unify behind the fact that we share love, we are one. Love is universal. And right now, we need to show kindness and compassion and gratitude. And we cannot give in to fear, division, isolation. We need to unite. Um, and so the idea was to talk about what is happening psychologically, because I don't think this is only about data and facts and, he said this and they did this and this one's behind this. And we need to go, I think, deeper than that. And I think connecting and understanding what's happening internally, what's happening in people's heads and hearts, is really important. So whether we're talking about the impact of all the media propaganda on people's health choices, what's happening in terms of mental health, depression, suicide, whether we're talking about mass formation and crowd psychology, and how to break out of it. I think that's really important and also just really interesting, because with that lens, you start to have a lot more compassion and forgiveness. I think you see people less as your enemy, and you see them as people who are struggling and suffering because of various things. Um, so we've initiated this campaign, and we had we had Professor Mark Antonio Spada, who's led the research on COVID anxiety syndrome, which was something he began researching last year, talking about the impact of all of these different restrictions on people's um, how they relate to this illness, whatever they believe about it. And that was just one part of it. But along with that, we started using art and music and creativity to spread the message of hope and love and unity, and to dispel fear. So we also initiated a bunch of collaborations with, I think, about 12 to 15 different types of individuals and artists and creators. And people just created beautiful, beautiful things, like be it songs or be it artwork, be it poetry or just video messages. We had some really amazing work come out under the theme of Love, Not Fear. And in addition to that, we run a Telegram channel where Robin and Eric Clapton and a couple of other people share their music selections. Again, under the theme of Love Not Fear, to inspire people to feel happy and to feel hopeful, and to get people to find that inner strength and to feel connected to everyone around the world who's experiencing something similar. Because I think a lot of us are being gaslit into thinking that we're the only ones feeling this way. And I think just knowing that you're not alone makes it easier. So I think that's where it is at right now. It's a very it's meant to be a positive and uplifting initiative that can help people, and we're trying to bridge divisions and bring people together.
Absolutely. I think mental health is a big issue because recently NCRB released the data of 2020, and the data showed that more Indians died from suicide than COVID 19 in the year 2020, which is very tragic.
The thing is that I've been saying it for a long time, and I'm sure you have experience with this. When you say facts like that, you don't really get a response or reaction. And I think that has to do with the fact of how we are programmed to only react when information is presented to us in a certain way in the media, be it on social media, a newspaper, on the news. If the news says, be worried about these types of deaths and this number of deaths, everyone is worried. If you or I say it about something else, flatline, right? And I think I really I do find Matthias Desmits's work on mass formation helpful, because I've been trying to understand why does it not go anywhere. And I do feel like we are in this state of kind of hypnosis because of all the media. I truly think the media is one of the key pillars to all of this, where people have been, I think, we're so scared. Everyone is just terrified of what it might be if it's not the version of things that's being told to us, that people have completely shut down. They've kind of absolved responsibility for themselves, and they're just hoping now. I think people are hoping that things will just be okay. Everyone just wants normalcy. Everyone wants to be happy and free. And unfortunately, we are seeing this spiral into a massive mental health crisis, and there's no avoiding it, because I think it was building up over a long time. We've been unhappy for many decades. It's been building up. It's not new. It's not only now. Yes, it's being exponentially aggravated now, but this is not the beginning. It might be the culmination, it might be an inflection point. But again, I think it's about time that these things came up to the surface. They needed to. We've been sweeping everything under the rug, as a species. So I think it's actually mind boggling to think of the scale and scope of what's happening. But that's why I think we just have to remain centered. And if we can help people around us, I think do it with love, or just do it with letting people be. Share what you want to share, but have compassion, because everyone is struggling. I think we all are pretty much experiencing PTSD of some sort right now.
Yeah, yeah, yes, we are. a lot of things have erupted and come to the surface in the past year. And we're in the midst of this unending COVID circus. And I call it a circus because that's what it is more than anything else. What do you think of vaccine passports and segregations and increasing mandates?
It's ludicrous. Like
Mm.
I think again that's a fictional idea that has been ingrained in us. We've been indoctrinated to believe that that is the only way. I think obviously if you create a very panicky situation and then you tell people who are in a panicked state that there is only one way out and it has to be this way, everyone is hoping on that. Everyone is latching on to it, but I don't think that people have ever been allowed to think that there are other ways. So if we had a rational conversation saying, hey, in all the pandemics of the past, whether they were real or exaggerated or whatever they were, there were multiple ways of dealing with the issue, that there are all these options on the table. So similarly, even with whether with a vaccine passport, why not tell people that there are many other ways to deal with this? We are being told that this is the only way and everyone approves of this way and you have to do this or you're a bad person and there's no other way. And that is the lie. It just is a lie. I think, again, I think it comes down to people's value systems. Like, do you feel your beliefs about whether this policy is right or wrong will be based on your values? Like, do you value equality? Do you value freedom? Do you value everyone having a choice and free will? If you truly, truly do in 100%, then you wouldn't be able to align yourself with a policy that goes against that. But I think we're just living in a bizarre time where even it's funny, but look what I have next to me. Um, Even in here, I mean, we're just disregarding the whole thing. We're just disregarding this
Yes.
fundamental document which apparently is meant to dictate what our whole lives are about. So we are living a lie. I think that the only reason it's gotten so far is because we've been conditioned a certain way, and then there's the media and the incessant propaganda and the fear. And I think that that can't last forever. I'm waiting and just moving on. I think you have to have confidence that once you know, you'll make the right choices, and then trust and see how things play out.
What do you think we can do to fight back against the propaganda, against the fear mongering?
I think you've just got to do it on a personal level. Like, once you tune it out, then embody your reality. So if I believe that, for example, I know that what the agenda is here. If I believe that there is an agenda that they're going to play out, I plan my life accordingly, in that I won't let the threat of lockdowns stop my life from progressing. If I want to, whatever, start a new job, or if I want to do something, if I was someone who wanted to have kids, or if I was someone who wanted to move into a different country, I would still try to do it. I think I would just not let the uncertainty rile me up. I think I would try to make the changes for where I want to go in my life. I think just discount it and try to embody whatever you know. And I think that's the only solution. I think try to be a positive, happy person as much as is possible. It's very hard. I know it's very, very hard. But whenever you can, try to find that happiness inside. I have a lot of anger in me, and I know a lot of us do, because it's upsetting and it's infuriating and it's heartbreaking and it's scary. And so, how to not have anger? But I think we have to also, this is something I'm trying to do right now. So, I'm not preaching, but practice forgiveness. Just forgive everything, forgive everyone, forgive yourself. Forgive yourself if you may have pushed wrong beliefs earlier. Forgive yourself for maybe making wrong choices for yourself and your loved ones. Forgive yourself at being angry at others. Forgive others for the choices they're making. Forgive those who are trying to like tell you, what to do. Just practice forgiveness maybe, and move forward and embody your truth. And when the time comes, if it does come, if anyone needs help or needs, when they realize, oh my god, I don't want to do this anymore, I don't believe this story or this narrative anymore, maybe they'll think, oh, hey, but Pratham, look at him, look at how he's done it. And then they can maybe mimic that. That's probably way easier than going and saying, banging on someone's door and saying, listen, listen, you need to believe this. And come on, you believe this with me and let's go yell about it. It's not going to happen.
I think we've spoken a lot about world issues, about COVID, about the pandemic, about social media networks. Let's talk a little bit about you. Khrisha, what do you want in life? I know that's a very vague question.
That's such a big question. um, I think, like, if I talk again, I feel like I'm repeating myself. But of course, the values that I've just presented to you, I kind of want to live a reality that allows me to embody those values every day. So, be it freedom, be it equality, be it unity, love, compassion, forgiveness. I think at this point, given the way the world is, and I just don't understand what's coming at us, I can only focus on wanting those values, and to be thinking about them and embodying them every day. But in a more tangible sense, like I have a vision, and I always have. This is a vision in my life. I've always wanted to live in nature. I've always wanted to live outside the city. I've always wanted um, an adventurous life of exploring and just being one with nature. I've always gravitated towards settings like that. um, I spent 6 weeks in Costa Rica, and I think that was when I was in my freshman year of college, and that was, I think, the first time in my life I thought, I kind of can picture living somewhere like this, or in a reality that allows me to feel like I felt there. So I think in the long term sense, I'd love to live somewhere alongside a like minded community. I want to co create new systems with other people. I want to collaborate with people who can lift me up and who I can do more with as well. I want to enable those types of collaborations between other people. So I want to see people create and just put their beauty and magic out in the world. And yeah, I just don't want to live a very urbanized life. It's not me and it never has been. So I think those are my general sort of wants for life.
I have one last question, but before I ask that question, do you have any questions for me?
So, in all the people you've had on your podcast, do you feel like there are any similarities between the majority, or do you feel like there's like a core theme that runs through them? Like, what's been sort of your observation about the community you've pulled together? Because you've identified people to have on here.
And that's a very interesting question. There is a similarity between multiple guests that I've got on my show, but that is by design. I've got these guests because they have something in common with me. And as a result, they will have a lot of things in common with each other.
Yeah,
I try to get guests who I find are very interesting to me and to the audience as well. I try to find guests are who are more open minded. See, the thing is, when I started this podcast, or when I thought of starting a podcast, I used to think, why am I not able to have these kind of conversations with my friends during
yeah.
drinking conversations without them shutting me? Within, I would open my mouth, and within 2 seconds, someone would tell me, you know what, shut up, just stop talking. so I
I
thought,
had
uh,
that at home a lot. Yeah.
so I thought, you know what, I'm going to start my own podcast. I'm going to get a lot of people and I'm going to talk, and no one's going to tell me to shut up.
Nice.
And
Okay, so that's the commonality.
sorry,
That's the similarity between us.
yeah, I guess so. I think the fact is we tend to disagree on some things. I'm sure there are some aspects where you and I disagree, where a
Yeah.
lot of guests disagree with me, but I think we can have that mutual respect to find common ground. And if not, at least we can say, hey, we can agree to disagree and move on. But
Yeah.
at the end of an hour, or at the end of 2 hours of conversation, both of us can feel like, you know what, that was a fruitful conversation. I learned something from that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I mean, it's a sign of emotional maturity, right? Agreeing to disagree or being able to respect that someone is different from you. I think that should be taught to us at a very young age, but it's not really. I think we're taught to like kind of be like everyone else and fit in the box. And even from school, wear the same uniforms and say the right thing. And if you don't say the right thing, get out of class and, stand in the corner. And at every point, we're forced to kind of think that there's a certain way we have to be. But I think I realized what happened. Like I tried to be that perfect person, and then it didn't work. Like everyone just turned on me when I started saying things that didn't toe the line. And I think that really shocked me. I was just like, I don't understand. I'm still the same person. The same people were applauding me 6 months before that, and they have my whole life. And suddenly they're not. Like more than
Yeah.
anything, it made me curious. I was just like, what is going on here? Why can't people just say, okay, that's what you believe, cool? I mean, I know that like whenever now there's this culture of, if you talk about something that doesn't match the mainstream, you're a conspiracy theorist. But when I heard that word and I started like figuring out, okay, what do people mean when they say conspiracy theorists? And it's like, this was 2 years ago, and I realized that people meant, oh, it's people who talk about like aliens and they think that the earth is flat or whatever, blah blah blah. And there were these couple of ideas that always came up, those are the people. And if you're not saying this means you believe that. To me it wasn't like, oh, but that's true and that's false. I just sort of was like, but so what if people believe it? Like, so what? Like, what's the problem? I don't understand. Like, if you believe that there's aliens up around and they might come one day, or whatever you may believe, why does that threaten me so much? Like, it shouldn't upset me. It really doesn't. And I don't see how that is a threat to society. Because I have lots of friends who have all sorts of crazy beliefs. I've met lots of people in the world who believe things that are truly bizarre, but they're just carrying on living their own life, like doing their own thing. So I think we have to renormalize the fact that people can and should be able to believe what they want, and that isn't a fundamental threat to me. If anything, it empowers me to be who I am and make choices about my decisions. And I think it's hard because it's been ingrained in us and we've been told a lot of lies that because people believe something different, all these violent things happen. But once we can see through that smoke screen, I think a lot of it then makes sense. And people like being able to have that freedom. I think freedom is addictive. If you're free to choose what you want to believe and you're free to say what you want and you're free to be who you are, I mean, those are the same people who are pushing for, kind of people to have freedom of expression in terms of their sexuality or, their other preferences, what they want to eat, and all these other things. So how can we draw this arbitrary line somewhere? I think it's really nice that you have a lot of guests and you let them come here and be who they are, and not judge them for it. And I think that's beautiful. And I think we need a lot more of that, because then we can find, like you said, people who'll allow you to speak. And if you're allowed to speak, you're allowed to grow and you're allowed to feel accepted and respected. And I think that's what I want to do with Disco as well. So you've given me a lot of motivation to feel like it's possible.
Yeah. Uh, the establishment keeps saying that the individuals who have extreme opinions are a threat. But what's ironic is that a lot of violence is committed by the establishment to promote uniformity of opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so ironic. They're trying to put this narrative that, look, this guy with an extreme opinion is going to create violence, and in order to change his opinion, a lot of violence erupts.
Yeah.
And that I find to be very funny.
But
So
Pratham, don't you see that like on a micro level as well? Like even within, say, a community unit or within society or in a family unit, there's always pressure to get someone to conform. If it may be, a certain group of individuals or it may be one person, it's sort of like it's justified to exert pressure and violence of some sort, verbal or otherwise, to get someone to be the way that someone else thinks they should be. Obviously, there is the caveat where, you can't be infringing on someone else's personal space and personal freedom, and you can't be committing acts of violence to someone else. Like, barring that, if you aren't doing that, it's amazing the cognitive dissonance that allows people to think that it's not okay to let people be, but then it is okay to try and force them to be a certain way.
Mm. Yes, these kind of activities can happen even in a dinner table conversation, which is why I'm not in any of my family WhatsApp groups. I I just leave the WhatsApp group as soon as they add me. I find it very weird when I go to weddings and family functions. Do you ever feel very weird during these occasions?
Yeah, I feel like it's often like we're putting on a mask, right? Like we're just going there, we're playing a character, and then we're leaving. And again, I felt this over a period of time. I remember when I was in college, when I was at Berkeley, and I didn't know anyone. I decided to go to Berkeley, and I didn't know anyone else who was going to the college. I picked it because it was the furthest thing away from home, and I just wanted to go as far as I could and just be myself and I find myself. And so when I went there, and I didn't I didn't really get on with my roommate too much. We didn't really become friends. She was fine, but we weren't friends. And so I felt quite lost for the first 3 months. I just didn't know how to make friends. Our classes were really big, the college was huge. And at that point I thought, okay, fine, if I want to make friends, maybe I'll join a sorority because I'll meet people that way. And I tried to do it, and I stayed in it for a year. I mean, I didn't live there, I just joined it, but I lived separately. And every time I was there, I felt like I was forcing myself to try and fit in, because everyone was nice. There was nothing wrong. It wasn't as dramatic as they show in like TV shows and stuff. It was fine. But I just didn't fit in. And I kept forcing myself to like see if I could fit in. And I tried to play a role. And at the end of it, I just quit. I quit that after a year as well. So I think same thing at Accenture, same thing when I tried to join the sorority. I've done that at various points, and I feel myself now in the last year, year and a half. I do feel myself not being able to express and be myself. I feel like I kind of have to be play a role or just be kind of silent and not be fully myself. But I think I'm also becoming comfortable with picking and choosing where I want to expend energy and trying to find that connection with people. To keep the peace, sometimes there are things you have to do or places you have to go, but it's okay. I think you can change your mindset and attitude about it, and in as many as you can. Try to just go with the flow. But I think it's all part of what we learn. I'm glad that I've been pushed in those situations. Now, in hindsight, I'm glad because it taught me that I can't force myself to fit into any kind of box and then feel like, okay, now I have friends. They didn't feel like my friends because they didn't know who I was. So they were nice to me. I was nice to them. We'd hang out, we'd go out, but I could never share beyond a point with them because I wasn't being fully honest. So it's been really nice over the last year. I've met so many new people, like yourself, online and through this community that's forming on its own. And I just feel so happy because I feel like for the first time I can really really just be myself. I can talk to maybe you much more openly than I can talk to many people who I've known for really long. And sort of like coming out of the closet, like just being able to be yourself in whichever way it might be. um, just being able to be you and say, okay, this is who I am, and not have someone angry at you for it.
Yeah. I felt the same way too in the past year with my usual friends, with my school friends. I call them my default friends. I try to distinguish between default friends and intentional friends. Default friends are friends with whom I've been hanging out from the past 10, 15 years. Every weekend, I go for a drink with them, I talk to them. But whenever I try to be myself, they think, oh, you're acting weird, man. You changed, man. You changed a lot.
Yeah.
I call them my default friends. I think as we get older, we'll move away from default friends and move towards intentional friends. These friends who we may meet online or who we may meet because of unforeseen consequences, but we, for some reason, will feel very comfortable with them.
Yeah, and I also think like we're learning how to think, even if you call them default friends, that it's okay to have friends with whom you share some things, and then you don't have
Mhm.
to share everything with everyone. So I don't have to have the same kind of friendship with everybody I know. Maybe friends from college or people from elsewhere. Like you can still maintain a certain, if you can have mutual respect, and you aren't getting angry at each other, you can still share some things with those people and maintain that if it's not harming you and it gives you happiness in that space. And then have very different types of more I don't know, intellectual or deeper connections with other people you may have met. That's okay. I don't think you have to expect the same thing from all your relationships.
Yeah. And finally, to end this podcast, I have another vague question. What do you think is the purpose of life?
I think I think the purpose of life is to keep improving yourself and to keep learning. I think to keep growing and to keep creating and to just actually try and find beauty and happiness in everything. And that sounds so generic, but I think it's the only anchor that I have found, especially in the recent months, that if I align myself to that purpose, then I know how to behave in every moment. If I don't have that, then I just don't know what to do. Then I'm kind of pulled towards maybe wanting to get angry, or maybe wanting to fight, or maybe wanting to withdraw, or maybe wanting to like just feel stressed. And I think if I know that my purpose is to improve and to just learn something, every challenge that comes in front of me, even if I get overwhelmed and maybe break down, then come out of that and say, okay, why is the universe sending this to me? What do I have to learn here? How can I just find a lesson from this or some happiness from this if possible, and then just move on to the next moment? I think that really is the only thing that I can make sense of right now, because I have absolutely no idea what is going to happen even 1 week from now, let alone, 10 years or 5 years or anything like that. And Pratham, I've always been a planner. I'm like someone who likes to be organized. I like to plan my life. I've always liked to know where I'm headed. I have goals and then I work towards them. And this has thrown me so far out of my comfort zone, so far out, because I can't plan anything. And I think also once I changed I really resisted that. I really resisted not being able to plan. But once I changed my mindset about it, and I have to continuously work on that, it's not like I did it and now it's done. But if I catch myself and then say, this is a burden off my shoulders, I don't have to plan anymore. It's difficult to make plans and to know that there is spontaneity and we're creating our own life in every moment with every choice we make and every second how we choose to respond. That's actually a lot more empowering. It means I don't have to plan. I just have to focus on how I have to be right now and just trust that things will be and unfold for your greatest good. I guess we're at a time where we have to see this happen, and it's so hard because right now it feels like I feel like for the last 6 months, I've just been waiting for things to turn, to turn, to turn. Okay, when is it going to turn? It's getting harder. It's getting harder. When will it turn? But I do have belief and faith that things will turn. And I feel like I told you, I'm proud of how much I've grown. I know I have a long way to go, but I'm happy that I can even be conscious of my weaknesses, and I know my family and the people around me can also see that I'm trying. And I think that's all that matters.
Well, thank you, Khrisha, for being on my podcast. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Pratham, for having me. I mean, I haven't done one like this ever. So thank you. Thank you for pushing me and thank you for having me. And I'm really excited to do more things with you.